Alright guys, let's get going on example 6. So the first thing we're going to do is identify what is the GCF. So I'm going to start by looking at the numbers or the coefficients, which this problem is missing a number, so there is secretly a 1 in front of the x. Don't forget about the sneaky ninja ones. They're right there and you just can't see them. They're like sneaky little ninjas. Okay, so what is the largest number that will divide into 1 and -5? Well, that would just be a 1. 1 is the largest number. So I'm going to write 1. Technically, you don't have to list 1, but you can list 1 if it helps. Okay? And then I'm going to look at each of my variables. So I have an x to the third, and I have an x raised to the sneaky 1 power. If I don't see it, there's secretly a 1 there. Okay, so remember when you're coming up with the variables for your GCF, first of all, every single term has to have a variable, which if you see, both terms have a variable. Secondly, the shortcut is to find the variable with the, with the smallest exponent. Sorry, guys. So the variable that currently has the smallest exponent will have x to the third and x to the first. So the smallest one is x to the first. So my GCF is just 1x, or you can just say x, whatever floats your boat. Guys, so the next thing you do, you gotta write your GCF in the very front, which I'm just gonna write it as an x. Don't forget to write the GCF in the front. Most people forget to put their GCF in the front, and guess what, you guys? The GCF is your bestie. Don't forget about your best friend. Put it in the front of your parenthesis. Okay? And then after that, you simply just divide every single term by your GCF, which I'm going to write it like this, just so when we're dividing, it's easier to see what's going on. Okay, so let's get started, you guys. So I'm going to start by dividing by the numbers. So 1 divided by 1, well, that's just 1. So you could write 1, or you don't have to. It's really up to you. And then you're going to, when you divide variables with exponents, what do you do with the exponents? You do subtract. So 3 minus 1 gives me a 2. So you can write this as 1x squared or just x squared. I'm just going to write x squared because that's usually how mathematicians write it. Again, we're lazy, so if we don't have to include something, we don't do it. So, yeah. Okay, and then -5. So let's go on to our next one. I'm going to divide by my numbers. Don't forget, you guys, that negative sign is attached to the 5. So -5 divided by 1 is -5. And x divided by x, well, since I have two variables with the same exponents, they will cancel out. Okay, so remember, canceling out doesn't mean it vanishes. It just means it will turn into a 1, because anything divided by itself is 1. So technically, it's like -5 times 1, which is -5. It secretly is there, but again, we don't write it. So be careful. It will cancel out, okay, but it doesn't just vanish into thin air. So watch yourself. Okay, so my final answer would be x parenthesis x squared minus 5. And don't forget, if you want to check yourself, you could distribute your answer and see if you get the original. Like x times x squared is x to the third, and x times -5 is -5x. So there you go. That's it. Who's ready for example 7? I am. Let's get going.